Our movie begins in the city of New Jersey, with a truck driver working for a factory. He agrees with the factory manager to dispose of some toxic waste illegally in exchange for a large sum of money. The driver agrees and takes the waste, heading to Manhattan. To reach Manhattan, he must go through a tunnel connecting New Jersey and Manhattan. He loads the trucks, heads onto the road, and at the same time, we see a traffic officer named George, who is in the tunnel as part of his job. He's talking to his fiancée, who works as a highway patrol officer. She is in the monitoring room, watching the tunnel through surveillance screens. Next, we meet a very hard-working secretary named Maddie, who is unemployed and has no money. She decides to move back in with her parents in Manhattan and passes through the tunnel. At the same time, we meet Roy, an advertising manager, who is also heading to Manhattan and will pass through the tunnel. We also see an elderly couple, Cooper and Eleanor, on their way to Manhattan, and they will pass through the tunnel as well. Not far from them, we see a prison transport vehicle heading towards Manhattan, and of course, it will pass through the same tunnel. We also see the driver, Kit, who will also pass through the tunnel with the passengers heading to Manhattan. Lastly, we meet Stephen, his wife Sarah, and their daughter Ashley, who are on their way to Manhattan, passing through the tunnel. All the characters in the movie are headed to various destinations, but they will all pass through the same tunnel. Meanwhile, a group of thieves steals from a person and takes his car, but the police chase them. They drive into the long tunnel, and during the chase, their car swerves and crashes into the truck carrying toxic waste. There are massive explosions that collapse a large part of the tunnel, blocking the road and trapping many people inside. We see Kit, the driver, reaching the tunnel but unable to enter because of the explosions. However, he bravely helps the injured, as if it's not his first time doing so. He meets a rescue worker named Frankie, and we learn that Kit used to be a rescuer but stopped working due to some personal issue. Kit asks Frankie about the situation, and Frankie tells him it's dangerous because people are trapped inside the tunnel, which could collapse at any moment. Kit suggests a solution: he can enter through the ventilation shafts to try and reach the trapped people. But Frankie's boss, Wilson, yells at Kit, saying that Kit doesn't work with them anymore and should stop thinking or planning. Wilson enters a passage in the tunnel and is killed when it collapses. Kit follows through with his plan, and inside the tunnel, George is alive, helping the survivors and counting them. He meets Stephen and Sarah, who are okay, and gathers them. He then finds Roy, the advertising manager, and helps him. Roy tells him he has an idea to escape, but they need to reach the emergency exit. On their way there, they meet Cooper and Eleanor, and Kit takes them along. Further down the tunnel, Maddie exits her car, unharmed. She sees the overturned prison transport vehicle and helps the prisoners escape. One of the prisoners, who has a panic attack and refuses to leave, is encouraged by Maddie and eventually escapes with her. However, the prison vehicle's wires are causing a potential fire, but Maddie quickly uses her shoe to grab a wire and safely pulls herself and the prisoner out. Next, Kit reaches the ventilation shafts, which are operating at high speeds. He carefully moves through them, one by one, and succeeds. He enters the tunnel, where he finds George, Maddie, and the others. They tell him that Roy has gone to the emergency exit to find a solution, but Kit warns them that it's dangerous, and the tunnel could collapse on them. He goes to stop Roy and finds him climbing up a rope. Kit calls to him, urging him to come down, but Roy refuses. Unfortunately, the tunnel collapses on Roy, and he dies. Kit barely escapes in time. The collapse causes a massive explosion, injuring one of the prisoners, who eventually dies from his injuries. At this point, the tunnel starts to flood with river water, frightening everyone. Kit calms them down, telling them they need to move to the higher side of the tunnel, which won't be flooded. He also plans to blow up part of the tunnel to block the water's entrance. Everyone agrees and follows him. Kit and Maddie head to the higher side of the tunnel, where Kit plants explosives and attaches them to a rope. He gives the other end of the rope to Maddie and, with great difficulty, manages to attach the explosives to the tunnel structure. He then pulls the rope from Maddie, shouting for her to move away because he's about to detonate. She moves away, and Kit throws himself as far as he can. A huge explosion happens, creating a barrier and blocking the water's entrance. Kit's plan succeeds, and everyone celebrates. George tells them that the rescue team is digging a tunnel to rescue them, but Kit warns that this could cause a collapse. Just then, a water-laden truck crashes into George, and they try to lift it off him, but the impact causes severe injuries. They pull George out on a stretcher to prevent him from suffering more. Unfortunately, the barrier Kit made with the explosives is not enough to hold back the water, and it starts flooding again. Kit quickly thinks of another plan and finds a place where the water hasn't reached yet. He tells everyone to swim there, but George, who is injured, tells them to leave him behind. In a heartbreaking moment, George gives the bracelet he bought for his fiancée, telling Kit to tell her that he loved her and wanted to be with her. Kit is deeply saddened but carries out his wishes. Kit and his group manage to reach the higher ground, but to their shock, they find that part of the area has collapsed, and water is coming towards them. They feel hopeless and think they're about to die. But Kit notices something in the wall and opens a path. Everyone quickly moves through the opening, but Cooper is frozen by his wife Eleanor's frozen body, and she has died from the cold. Kit convinces him that she would want him to survive, and Cooper agrees to join them. They all make it through the opening and climb a long wooden ladder. Everyone makes it up except Kit, who falls into the water when the ladder breaks. Maddie jumps in to save him, but they're abandoned by the others, who leave them behind as the place collapses. The opening that could have saved them is now sealed. Kit and Maddie swim in the water, and Kit sets off his last explosives, creating an opening they can escape through. The rescue and medical teams finally reach them, and among the responders is Officer Grace, George's fiancée. Kit gives her the bracelet and tells her about George's death, saying he was a kind, brave man who loved her deeply. Grace is devastated but walks away with the bracelet. In the final scenes, Kit and Maddie confess their love for each other as they ride in an ambulance on their way to the hospital. And that's where our movie ends. Wishing you a happy viewing and peace.